This is the KwinnPop Podcast. I'm Peter Dawson. Joining me, as always, is James Bullock.
Oh, Lordy, yes it is.
And we have a special guest today. He is the creator of Tilty House, the Late Night Dub Fight, and a contributor for Loading Ready Run, Mr. Ian Horner. How you doing, Ian?
Greetings, fellow humans. I am doing quite well. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to do it. So let's just dive right into it. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about yourself, Ian?
Well, I am a online personality by night and a government employee by day. Started off doing things online way back in 2008 when I started tiltyhouse.com as a website, as a place to host my podcast for when I was living in Japan called Diecast. And I guess over the years we've done a number of projects, done a number of different online things, and here we are today.
You mentioned Tilty House there, but one of the main products that has been produced is the Late Night Dub Fight. So why don't you tell us, what is the Late Night Dub Fight?
The Late Night Dub Fight is a show where I take clips from classic television, movies, video games, anything that has video, strip out the audio and put it up on a screen, and then I get a group of improv comedians to dub new dialogue over it in new and interesting ways. And usually I have no idea what they're going to say. They have no idea what they're going to see, and it just always turns out great.
Kind of a magical moment where you just get ambushed, and then it's like, quick, react, which is improv in a nutshell.
Yeah, exactly. It's I like to think of it as more of a relaxed improv because everyone gets to sit down for a while in front of a microphone with some water.
Yeah, it's definitely more cozy than stand up on stage and constantly shake your butt until something happens.
Fewer injuries too.
So Ian, when did the idea form for a Late Night Dub Fight? How did that come into your mind? This is a great idea, or it's just something to have fun in doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I actually had to research that question a bit. That started way back in 2000 and I'm going to say 9. I just returned from Japan, and the improv group that I'm in with fellow Loading Ready Run member Brendan Beach Deary, Synaptic Chaos Theater, was invited to go out to a convention in Vancouver called Anime Evolution. And they wanted the Synaptic Chaos Theater group, as well as members of Loading Ready Run and Team 4-Star, to do a little show that they were calling amateur anime dubbing. And it was similar in respect, but there were a number of differences. Though things were a lot more prescribed, the clips were a lot shorter, and it just didn't really gel. And I thought, you know what, I can do this. So I can do this better.
That's the power of the internet. That's all of our thinking when it comes to the internet. I can do that, but you know what? I can do it better.
Yeah, exactly. So I did, and apparently I didn't stop because we've been going since 2000. The first official Late Night Dub Fight was in Calgary at the Otafest convention in 2010. And actually, I just want to bring up a quick anecdote about that. Mm-hmm. A frequent contributor to the Dub Fight, Dan Ross, and I wrote and recorded the theme song in a university hallway minutes before the show actually went live for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Inspiration always comes at the peak of a deadline.
Yeah, I'm gonna realize, wait, we don't have a way to start this show. Well, let's go.
Let's just do it. One of the most interesting things about Late Night Dub Fight definitely has to be the clips. How do you come up with the idea of what clips are the best ones to pick?
That's an interesting question because it's probably the most difficult part of the show. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into putting together each show, specifically with regards to the clips, in terms of trimming them down and putting in the film reel effect, the secret bar at the bottom for the improvisers. But picking the clips, I think, is probably the most difficult part of that because you've got to be in the mindset of a performer and see what have I got to work with in the scene. You can choose scenes from comedies that are just hilarious in themselves, but without something for the actors to actually grab onto and make something new with, they're just repeating what already exists, and that's it's fun for everyone to just spout references and whatnot, but you're not really making anything new, and it doesn't make for a good show.
It can be tricky, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I was curious if you've ever run into any issues with, because obviously you're playing a lot of clips that are copyrighted and stuff. Have you run into any issues licensing or just when posting them online, getting copyright issues, anything like that?
Constantly. I mean, anytime you're dealing with works that already exist, you're definitely going to run into an issue with the YouTube's copyright robots. You know, the ideas of fair use do not play well when it comes to automation, because a robot's not going to be able to tell what what's being said, how transformative the work is with regards to what we're putting into it. I like to think that what we're doing is fully fair use, and so I'll disagree with some of the things that YouTube says are copyrights, and I'll always challenge them, but you don't always win those challenges, and when that happens, it's just a matter of, okay, well, I guess we put this clip up on the website itself and hope we never get popular enough to get crashed.
Yeah, that's the risk, unfortunately, because, it's not really on the side of the original content producers, so it's on the side of the big companies.
Exactly, and it's odd noting which companies seem to be better about this than others. I mean, as we know, Nintendo is notoriously aggressive in terms of taking things down.
Very strict.
Yeah. And I found that actually it's of the companies that have problems with me uploading things, it's often Japanese companies. More often than not, it's the anime that'll get flagged more than anything else. I tried extremely hard to have the Yuri on Ice clip show up on YouTube, and there was no amount of finagling I could do with that video in terms of skewing and changing the color and adding grains that would get it through that copyright wall.
Oh, that's a shame.
Considering how many problems you've had with that, are you surprised that late night dub fights have gone on this long, and how many have you actually done since the inception?
Well, that's two separate questions. I'll answer them both. I'll consider one of them a freebie. We've done 32 shows by my count since the inception, and I chalk that up to it being a very good live show. This is one of the problems we've had with improv and improv style shows across the board with Synaptic Chaos Theater and with Tilty House, is that they're fun in person, but something gets lost along the way a bit when it turns into a clip or when it turns into a full video. And so, I mean, being able to pack a room at some place like PAX or at MagFest, that shows that you're putting out some good content for the convention, and so they're definitely going to be happy to have you back later. But when it comes to being online, well, we've got a fairly good following, but could always use more.
Always room to grow.
Exactly.
So on that note, so where could we go to see a live late night dub fight?
Late night dub fights these days are pretty much a institution at PAX West, which we've been trying to get into for years, and managed to succeed with the late night dub fight, so that was a good thing. The next show, though, will probably be at MagFest 2018. I don't want to announce that as for certain yet, but keep your eyes on the prize there. Beyond that, though, you can tune into desertbus.org during the first part of the run. We'll be doing a late night dub fight there as well.
So for those who aren't familiar with late night dub fights, who are the most common participants in the late night dub fights?
I've mentioned earlier that a couple of our members, Dan Ross and Brendan Beach-Deary, they're both members of Synaptic Chaos Theater, and they're pretty common. You can also see at a lot of our early shows, we had Will Wood, Ryan Caron, Aaron Watson, and after a while, Ben Ulmer, who viewers may know as Bengineering online. We added him to the Synaptic Chaos Theater roster later in the lifetime of the troupe, and he's become a fantastic performer. But since then, we've added a number of good regulars. We've had Chris Straub a number of times. Mikey Newman's been on a couple times. Graham is a stalwart. Graham Stark of Loading Ready Run is a stalwart on the cast. And just recently we had Carly Esmelli from Cards Against Humanity and Allison Lurs from Magic the Gathering on for their second shows. So yeah, it's the cast of characters is growing, and I'm really pleased about that.
And Kathleen Stark, she's also on there, isn't she?
Yes, Kathleen has also done a few shows as well. It's been a bit more difficult to get them on now that they've started their lovely family.
On that note, who would you say is the current champion with the most wins? Because
Well, I'm going to
obviously Kathleen and Graham of What It Life if they have a kid, but
yes. Well, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret here that the winner is usually determined just by my own jiggery pokery. I try to spread the quote-unquote winners out amongst them. Really, the winner is the audience.
Oh, yeah.
But if I had to go with the number of people who have actually won a show, I'd say it's probably tied between Graham and Ben. So yeah, I've been trying to keep. I've tried to keep it relatively even, just to keep people guessing who are actually keeping track. I don't know if anyone's keeping track, but
I had no idea.
Now they know the secret. Yeah.
Oh man, that is crazy because Peter is really the one that exposed me to late night dub fights. I had no real idea about it until he told me about it, and I watched it, and I was blown away because I was crying, literally. I had tears in my eyes from laughter. So I have to ask you, what is your favorite, or some of your favorite clips from late night dub fight?
Ooh, let me scroll through the list here. Wow, yeah. So I was talking earlier last year about last year's show when we had Alison Lurs on for the first time, and I found out at the show is a fan of the older shoujo anime, much like I am. And I thought, let's bring on a little show called Rose of Versailles, which is all about young Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution.
Interesting.
And it had this. It was going to be a problematic clip because the clip is about a scene in the show where a young girl is being sold off to an old aristocrat for marriage, and so it gets a bit creepy. But then there's this. It cuts to a shot of a frog fountain, just spewing water, and I think it was either Allison or Carly who just started making a vomiting sound, and everyone just jumped in, and we don't just see that frog once. They keep cutting back to it, and so every time the vomiting just gets louder and louder, and that was one of the first times that I'd done an actual spit take on stage and then fell down from laughter. So that was a heck of a clip. One of my other favorite clips was back in one of the first episodes of the dub fight itself, back in 2011, I gave Will Wood the theme song to the black and white 1950s Astro Boy without music and said, go ahead and just do a thing on top of this. And he actually did a song, and it was spectacular, start to finish, rhyming, on rhythm, just magnificent. But my favorite clip that I've ever done, and this is getting back to your question about how do I choose the clips, I like to split things up based on what convention we're going to be playing it. So if it's a pan geek convention like PAX, I'll put everything in. We'll have the sci-fi, we'll have some fantasy, we'll have some movies, some video games, some shows. If it's not an anime convention at all, then we're not going to put any anime in. If it's not a video game convention, we won't put any video games in. But this time at PAX, I wanted to do something completely self-indulgent. And one of my favorite games in the past year has been Yakuza 0. And I'm not sure if...
Yep.
Yes.
We're in total agreement.
You are amongst friends here.
Good. Well, I won't have to describe to you, but I will describe to the listeners. The clip that we chose is the introduction to one of the characters in the game, the introduction to Majima. Mm-hmm. He's Yakuza, but he runs a cabaret club, and it's a very long cutscene that involves two guys having a business meeting who suddenly look over the edge of their balcony seats to see a man assaulting a waitress or a hostess at the club, and this Majima character comes in and just goes through amazing acrobatics to not actually punch this guy's lights out, but have him punch himself out, both literally and figuratively. And it's an amazing scene. And it involves a jazz musical number in the middle of it, which is just grand. So I give this to all the people at the show, including Ben Ulmer, who is a star performer, and he knocks it out of the park. He has not seen or heard of Yakuza, but he was calling what was going to happen next in the scene. He knew when the band was going to start up. And when he did, he just jumped out of his chair, yelled, "I'm a wizard," and did a victory lap on stage. So I don't think I can ever indulge myself in a clip like that again, because it's never going to be as good as that one was.
Oh man, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, that's definitely a magical moment. But speaking of magical moments, so I've gone to quite a few shows at PAX West myself, back when it was called PAX Prime, or just PAX, because I'm old like that apparently. But
PAX West or PAX Prime forever.
Yep, PAX Prime forever, absolutely. But yeah, one of the ones I went to was the 2013 one, which is one of my personal favorites because it has a bunch of clips I'll show people if they've never seen a late night dub fight clip. Like the one that comes to mind that I show a lot of, like I think I showed this to James, was the mask one.
Yeah, that's what you showed me.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Where it's just like they get attacked by weird like magicians who keep turning into smoke, and then the soldiers are like, "Sir, we don't know what the hell he's doing."
Oh, that one's a good one, just for introducing people to the idea of mask.
I know. No, it's like, what if G.I. Joe was more insane? But unfortunately, this is the thing. I guess the camera cut out partway through or something, and so a few clips were lost to time, as it were. But one of the ones I quote probably the most from that show is actually one of the lost ones. So I don't know if you remember this one, but there's a Spider-Man bit that you did during the show.
Right. Yeah. I was trying to look up information about the shows beforehand, and I was wondering where that clip had gone. You probably remember it better than I do, to be honest.
Well, it really comes down. I think it was Beige who was playing the villain, and his delivery of the line. But so if I'm remembering right, the 2013 one, you had, for the prompts to kind of make the clips different, you had the Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So it was changed to Spider-Man practicing his sex moves. Like it was a Spider-Man 1960s animated clip. And then,
man.
Yeah, I don't know. And then I think Strub was voicing Spider-Man. But the big thing is Beige was voicing the villain, who was like this stage magician. So, of course, you've already got Chris Strub doing his kind of low-key, snarky voice for Spider-Man, which is pretty great. But then Beige is going complete 1960s ham. At one point, and remember, he's practicing his sex moves. So at one point, the wizard shoots the bird at Spider-Man out of a wand.
God, I love 60s Spider-Man.
Yeah. and then like Spider-Man's all, "What the hell?" And it's like, "What's wrong, Spider-Man? Don't you want to have a swallow?"
Oh.
Wow.
Just the most amazing sex pun.
Yep.
It's one of those, I wish I could show that to people, because that is just I impersonate Beige's villain voice sometimes if I'm, I don't know, playing D&D or whatever, and I just want to like get into the thing. So even if I don't make that specific joke, because of course no one's going to get what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
The voice
itself. How do you get that into a reference? Like, how do you in a normal conversation? Like, how do we get that?
Whenever a bird just kind of like swoops by you, I don't know if you run into that a lot. I live near a bunch of seagulls who love to like fly low right in front of people because they don't care. So I'll somehow try to force it in, but it
Some people laugh, and others will need an explanation.
Yeah. So now I'm going to explain over the next 20 minutes. Because what experience I had back in 2013.
First, we're going to have to tell you about this show that you don't know about.
That you might not know about.
Yeah. Oh, that one, yeah, but that one's got a lot of great ones. Like, if people have never seen the clips before, I usually point to the 2013 one, because that's got He-Man, where Skeletor tries to find a new wife.
Yeah,
and then
the Mass Effect one, it was, oh man, the shooting gallery up on the, yeah.
Yeah, Garrus and Male Shepherd discovering their love for each other while firing off the shooting gallery. And, yeah, there was a lot of amazing timing that night. But there's, of course, all the other shows have great ones. Like, I think it's 2014 has Smokey the Ashtray.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Which you really just need to see, because I can't explain that.
Well, you got me remembering that we had Golden Bat there. We had the first example of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Well, JoJo's rife with it.
Oh, yeah.
But, so let's... As much as I would love to just sit here all day recalling clips.
Yes, that's always great podcast, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, remember this thing that you don't have context for, listeners?
Yeah. Also, it's a visual medium.
Yeah. To shift away just tragically from late night dub fight for a bit, I wanted to actually ask about how you got involved with Loading Ready Run in particular.
Well, that's that has a lot to do with my work with the late night dub fight. Oddly enough, the first time I met Graham was a couple of years previous to that fateful, not actual late night dub fight. And we were doing another show out at Anime Evolution in Vancouver, and we thought, well, hey, let's for this improv show, let's see if we can stunt cast some famous people from the internet to maybe drag their fans out to see our show. Well, I know this guy Graham Stark from this Loading Ready Run site. And maybe they'd be willing to do some improv work with us. Maybe they'd get some of their people up as well. And it turns out that there weren't enough people with improv experience in Loading Ready Run to have a full cast, but Graham was certainly game. We met on an escalator, me walking backwards while going up, him walking backwards while going down, as we can have a conversation. And it was a great time. It was a great show. And after that point, we just started doing more and more work together when we showed up at various conventions, until finally, I think it was at an after party at one of the next, I think it was that same Anime Evolution where we did the first dub fight, the first not dub fight. That Graham and Kathleen, on their way out after the parties, said to my partner and I, we need to get you guys out to Desert Bus. And at that point, we've been working regularly ever since.
So what do you currently do at Loading Ready Run?
On Loading Ready Run, I am a contributor to the show. They have me on to do streams, do some of their acting, and I do a little bit of editing work on the side as well for them. So if you've been watching any of the replay videos of their streams, I am the one who is tasked with editing all of those and getting them up online, and that's a bit of a
that's a task.
Yeah, there's a lot of content that we put out.
Well, yeah, because just maybe to look at Loading Ready Run a bit, because you guys do gaming, you do comedy, and then you do a lot of stuff with Magic the Gathering, don't you?
Yeah, we've got a lot of Magic content recently. In fact, we've just moved our Friday night streaming slot to just be straight Magic. It used to be tabletop games of all sorts, but we're moving that over to Wednesdays along with our multiplayer game streaming. And then Friday nights is Friday Night Magic on Loading Ready Run as well. But we also do a few, well, and by we, I mean I, do a couple of streams that are based on the actual crafting and whatnot. You can tune into my show, it's called Tinker Tailor Solder Fry. Recently, we've been doing some home automation projects with a Raspberry Pi, but we've done cooking of pizzas, strange vegetarian pizzas with broccoli crusts. We've done sewing. We've done metal work, leather work. It's a lot of fun and a very chill stream as well.
Okay, so, well, it gets to follow up on that. What have you been playing lately?
Well, let's get back to Yakuza. on alternate Monday nights, 6 Pacific, Beej and I do a show called Matters of Import, where we take import games, and we recently started Yakuza Kiwami, and then I've been taking that home to play myself on my home streams over at twitch.tv/tiltyhouse. So if you'd like to catch up with our journey through Kamurocho, you can do so there. But yeah, I've come into the Yakuza games late, and I have realized upon playing partway through Zero, these games were meant for me.
Yes.
Like in a very Junji Ito way. I just slot right in.
It's really surreal, too, because when you start to find out that Yakuza games, like, they take real-world locations, but then they tweak them. And then you see photos of the real locations, you're like, could I navigate this area just by playing a Yakuza game?
Well, having spent 2.5 years living in Japan, it's really a nostalgia trip every time I sit down and boot up that game. I was telling people recently that. So one of the things in the game that happens is you eat food to regain health. But whenever you're eating food, you're always seeing your character eating the food from behind. So you don't actually get to see the food. You only see these tiny little square pictures that take up a fraction of your screen.
And he just tells you how delicious it is afterwards.
Yeah, but I have a theory about why they do that. I think the Yakuza games are made specifically for middle-aged Japanese men who want to relive some of their glory days, and because of the way that the Japanese society is set up, the woman takes care of the wife takes care of the finances, and the man just goes out and makes the money. People like to buy the Yakuza games because they are 7 different games in one. So if they're only allowed to buy one game a year, why not be a game that has many different things?
Right.
So the food aspect is based on the idea of you're just trying to remember. It's evoking the memory of this food that you've already eaten or this drink that you've already had.
I never really thought of it that way, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's a theory, but I know that whenever I'm playing that game, I am thinking, oh yeah, beef bowls. Those taste delicious, and I could go for one right now. I can't.
I can vouch. I went to a restaurant in one of the games, and then I found out about Genghis Khan stew, so I had to make that myself.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
Oh yeah, hard but good.
Yeah.
But as much as I would love to talk about Yakuza all day,
let me tell you.
Yeah. I've been a fan of that series pretty much since the beginning. I think I didn't get into Yakuza 2 myself, but.
Yeah, I started in 2006 when it came out. The blessing of an old school brick and mortar video store gave me the opportunity to play that game on PS2.
Oh man, that must have been something special at that point.
It really was. It truly, truly was. And the thought of playing this game now, especially playing Kiwami with the original Japanese language compared to that English dub that we had.
Oh yeah.
It's much funny.
Oh man.
Oh man, so good. Just before we digress too much, one of my biggest disappointments from PAX West this year is that they didn't bring the replica Kamurocho up from E3.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I was really expecting them to, because it was so close to the release of Kiwami, and nope, nothing. So.
Oh man.
We did get to ride a series of dinosaurs, though.
That's true. I mean, so you give and you take a little, I guess.
Yeah, but we should probably talk about, because we've been kind of hinting at it throughout the podcast so far. Is what can you tell us about the Desert Bus for Hope?
Well, for those who are not already in the know, Desert Bus for Hope is a video game charity marathon. We like to think of it as one of the originals. It's been around for a while. It's currently in its 11th year now. And the way this one works is that we, of Loading Ready Run and associated affiliates, get together and play the world's most boring video game until we have to stop. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on both of those aspects. The game is Desert Bus, and that was a game created by Penn and Teller for an unreleased game for the Sega CD called Penn and Teller Smoke and Mirrors. The idea behind it was that Janet Reno at that time was on a crusade against violent video games, saying that they were murder simulators. And so Penn and Teller figured, well, if that's the case, why don't we make a game, that satirizes that idea that if kids need games that will train them for the real world, let's make a game where they drive a bus from Tucson, Arizona to Las Vegas in real time. but the bus is governed to, I think it's 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it slightly lifts to the right. So if you don't constantly tap the left on the control pad, you're going to crash the bus into the right. And then if you do get crashed, you get towed back in real time. So it's not a fun game, which means we have to do fun things around it in order to make this an interesting experience. And those include wacky challenges, little comedy sketch bits. I do a mini late night dub fight there as well. We also have a ton of prizes that we put out through giveaways, through draws, through contests, and through some live auctions as well. I mean, we've had some pretty rare stuff like full foil sheets of mythic cards, just a huge pixel blankets sewn up by hand by some of our amazing volunteers and contributors. And it goes for about a week. And the reason it goes for about a week is because we keep going until you stop paying us. The system is that every hour has a set cost, but the next hour, to keep the show going for another hour, the next hour costs 7% more than the previous hour. So it starts to exponentially get a little bit more expensive, which means it runs for about a week each time, give or take a few hours, depending on how generous people are. But of course, that also means that our biggest fear is that some Saudi oil sheik is going to discover us and just make us keep going for a year.
This is something good to do with the money.
Well, that's a good point. And I forgot to mention there, this is a charity event, and all the money is going towards the Child's Play Children's Charity Hospital, or Children's Hospital Charity out of Penny Arcade and Seattle. And they provide toys, video games, and entertainment for children in children's hospitals and their families. And that's something that is desperately needed, because there are a lot of charities out there that already fund children's hospitals, fund research, and fund that sort of healthcare. But when you're in a hospital for treatment, it's a scary place for children. It's not just a scary place, it's also a boring and stressful place. And you need some way to take your mind off of that treatment, or take your mind off of what's going on. And so you need video games, movies, etc. And we help provide that.
I wonder if they're providing fidget spinners, or if that's finally dying off.
Look, we just got into the fidget spinner here at Craze here, Loading Ready Run, so...
Yeah. I'm just imagining it's going to be like a Fallout future where it's like you can only pay for stuff in fidget spinners. Got to mine those landfills. Oh yeah. But watch out for the vein of ET.
Yeah.
You don't want that collapsing in on you.
Oh man, that is a perfect segue, honestly, because I personally just found out about Desert Bus, the actual game, about 2 weekends ago. I was watching a YouTube channel, and they were talking about some of the worst games ever, and Desert Bus came up. I had no idea about Desert Bus, and I have to ask you, how did you find out first time about Desert Bus?
Well, myself or the committee?
For yourself.
Myself? Oh yeah, no. My first introduction to Desert Bus was actually via the event Desert Bus for Hope. I had no idea that was going on. I was only aware of it from the third one way back in the day. And it was, I think my partner Corey mentioned, hey, you should watch this stream that's going on. And back then streams were not a thing, so this was kind of a big deal. And so we're watching these people, and of course, this is a part of how I got into Loading Ready Run. I made a couple songs for them to play during the run, contributed to some challenges, and yeah, we had a lot of fun watching it. And man, that game looked boring, but boy, did I want to play it.
Isn't it like every 3 hours you get a fly in the windshield?
Yeah, halfway to your destination, you get a fly in the windshield, and it doesn't come off until you get to your destination and turn around and go back and do it again.
So they at least clean off the bus. They at least clean it off.
They do, but I will bring up a bug that we discovered in the game. Because it was an unreleased game, and I think we're the only people who ever got to this point. So in Desert Bus, they've done a good job of rendering how flat it is. They also decided to render, the experience of driving through time. So it goes from daytime through dusk to nighttime, and then back to dawn again. But there's something in the programming, there's some bug that means you never get past dawn. So after dawn, you go right back into dusk and then into night. So you're driving in a perpetual state of twilight and darkness. And unless you crash the bus, you never see daylight again.
At the risk of making an obscure reference, it's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon in the later years when they only had red sky. They were trapped in the desert bus universe.
Exactly. It's a desert bus universe, or, I mean, everyone on the bus is a stand user, and...
yes, that's true. More JoJo. I don't know how many listeners are going to be JoJo fans, but that was a JoJo reference.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's a JoJo reference, is that the JoJo fan has to explain that it's a JoJo reference.
Yeah, you just hear someone raising their hand in the background. I got it! It's all good. It is one of the most popular manga anime series of all time, so for what it's worth. But we should probably ask, so we've got Desert Bus 2017, abandoned the regular numbering system in favor of years. So Desert Bus 2017 is going to be coming November 17th. You want to tell us a bit about what you have planned for this one?
Yeah, this year Desert Bus will be in an all-new location, and it's going to be pretty spectacular. We've got access to a bunch of new equipment and a bunch of new lighting, so this is probably, if nothing else, going to be one of the best-looking Desert Buses ever. I think we've got some new drivers. For the first time, we've got Andrew Ferguson, who is traditionally the Desert Bus photographer. He'll be having a driving shift as well. And so that's going to be a lot of fun if you know anything about Andrew. And if you know anything about Desert Bus and the Loading Ready Run, Andy Cowden will be coming for the whole run and will have his own driving shift as well. Usually he's only around for a few hours each run because he's a legitimate actor and is usually quite busy during the run. But oh boy, that man is a dense pile of singing and dancing talent, and so it's going to be a heck of a good time.
Well, yeah, I believe he sang the song Tucson or Bust one year.
That's correct, which has become sort of an anthem for the group. But yeah, if you're interested in finding out more about Desert Bus, we've posted up the driver schedules, the list of all the drivers. We're doing prize previews and all sorts of things leading up to the event over at desertbus.org on the blog there.
It sounds
that
like
is incredible.
Yeah. What do you have a specific goal in mind for an amount you're trying to reach, or?
That's a tough question. Last year we raised an astounding $693,000.
Wow.
$880 change on top of that. And so it blows our mind, the generosity of the viewers every year. And so, I mean, it's not that we don't have we've always got goals in our head. We always want to beat previous years, and every year we think, well, this is going to be the year that we don't quite make the goal, or we don't break last year, and every year they prove us wrong. So I don't know. This year might be the year that we don't make more than last year. But when you're talking about that kind of numbers, that's an amazing achievement for all of us and all of the viewers as well, and especially to be able to give that money to a good cause is something I feel really good about.
It is ultimately for the children.
It's right there in the unofficial catchphrase book.
Yep. Well, I think that is going to cover everything we wanted to talk about, so I want to thank you one more time for joining us today, Ian.
Oh, thank you so much, guys, for having me on. This has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for us.
Same here.
Yeah. And as always, James, thank you for joining us as well.
Hey, it couldn't be any more of a soulful environment than what we've had here today.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, Lordy.
There we go.
Well, on that note, this has been Peter Dawson with the KwinnPop Podcast.